When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
I'm a avoider! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Warning, creators of this game do understand the subject matter may be offensive to some, but they do honor the families and people that have been affected by these real-life tragedies that these individuals have caused. Want to play a game?
Oh, yeah!
Lover of true crime?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we got an interesting game for you to check out.
Wow.
With the mashup of influences such as horror movies, collecting cards, and RPGs.
What?
Led to giving birth to an incredible creation of this game, Killers, the card game.
You are all my children now.
This game is a collectible trading card game featuring some of the most infamous killers, with tidbits of trivia on the back of each card to help you learn some insight to each criminal.
Who the hell are you?
Let's not forget, during the game, cops will be chasing you and these criminals.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
However, check out their website listed through all social media today, which can be found under Killers, the card game.
Am I on the internet?
I want to play a game.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Hi, this is Princess Victoria, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This next guest is a Native American warrior from the Pacific Northwest that carved a path all across the wrestling world with some of the best fighters in the business that was around at that point. And she is from Goldendale, Washington, now making her residence in Oklahoma. Some know her online as Vicky Oates, but professionally, she was Princess Victoria. Princess Victoria, how the hell are you?
I'm awesome. How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm wonderful. And I've had the opportunity to chat with you during one of our live fundraisers, and that's always been fun. And we're finally getting a chance to sit and actually have a full in-depth about you, which I'm glad to do.
I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. So, and it's funny, I go back and forth, and she's become a friend. She's out in your neck of the woods. We're going to get her back on for a second time, but love her to death. Mike McGurk.
Oh yeah,
You
I've
know
met
Mike at
Mike.
all? Or?
I've met Mike on some of the the gatherings and see, I think it was the gathering I went to in either 2012 or 2013 that she was there.
Yeah, Mike's awesome. I think she's in Oklahoma City, but
I'm gonna have to look her up. I mean,
yeah,
you're telling me something I didn't know. I mean, I know Carmine's down here. Tommy's doing the BCW and all that, but I had no knowledge that Mike lived around here.
yeah. Well, she was born and raised in Oklahoma. Her father, the legendary Leroy McGurk, is from Oklahoma. Obviously, ran Mid South and stuff before Bill Watts and all that. And
Right.
I think you guys would get along. I'll have to let her know I'm going to connect you. So
yeah, definitely. You can drop my I'll give you my digits and you can drop my digits to her.
Sounds good. We can take care of that afterwards because me and Mike text all the time. I'll put it this way, and obviously it's not about Mike. I love her to death. She's become a friend. It was funny. Mike is one of those ladies. Why I love her is because she is not afraid to put her foot in your ass to say, if I'm wrong, she'll tell me I'm wrong. And hey, you know what I mean?
I love somebody who shoots straight from the hip. Don't treat me like a mushroom. Don't feed me bullshit and keep me in the dark. If I'm wrong, call me on it. Yeah. If I'm right, have my back.
Yeah, because the thing is, and I think it's good and bad. I love text. I'm not talkative because I do this all the time. So sometimes there's confusion, but call me on it and we'll figure it out.
Exactly.
And I was venting to Mike. Yeah, I'd vent and be like, this person don't get it, that person. And she would go, hey, point blank, straight, hey. And that's why I love her about her. She has no problem shooting straight with me, which I appreciate.
And that's what I'm talking about.
So
it's an easier life when people like that are around you. When you got people blowing smoke up your skirt, you don't know what to believe. Even if they're telling the truth, you don't know if you should believe them because they've blown so much bullshit at you.
Am I making fun of you? Oh, no, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they didn't blow up my skirt because I didn't shave my legs for this today. So
me either. It's October. It's October. I'm getting out the beads and the braids.
Hey now. So obviously, how was it for you? Well, I should say, how do I put this? Is it fitting that you started in the Pacific Northwest with the Don Owens and such because of being born in Washington State? And I say that because, and I'll bounce all over the place to cover it as much as possible during our time. But obviously, I know you left home at a young age because of some rumor and innuendo.
No innuendo at all. Me and my brothers were severely abused by both my bio mom and my stepmom. It's in the book.
Yes, which I want to mention before we get further. We might as well mention that now. The book is Princess Victoria, A Tale of Tears, Triumphs, and Turnbuckles. Amazon, that link will be on all outlets of this. So
either that, or if you want it autographed and you want it personalized, contact me on Facebook under Vicky Otis, Vicki Otis. You'll know it's me. I'm the first one that comes up. Contact me. I can send it personalized and autographed. $35 including shipping.
Right on. So obviously, and we'll go there since you said there was abuse with you and your brother and such.
Severe abuse.
With that being said, though, is there a certain point, because that's especially back in that time period, things weren't talked about as much, where today things are addressed. So how was it for you to wrap your mind about this? Obviously, this wasn't normal, but it was your normal, if that makes sense.
Well, when you start out being abused, especially sexually abused at 2 years old, you don't know any difference.
Hence why I
you
said
don't
it's your
know that
normal.
right. And see, my brothers and I, once that, and I call him Monster, I won't call his name. He died this year. Yay. He's down there burning in hell. But we weren't allowed to really associate with other kids. We weren't allowed to go on the sleepovers and all that. There was always an excuse, because if we started going on to the sleepovers and socializing with normal families, we wouldn't have realized that what was going on in our family wasn't normal. See, and my bio mom was, in my opinion, just as responsible for the abuse as my stepfather was, because I started telling her at 4 years old what was going on.
Yeah.
And I told her 4 different times, 3 different times with my brothers. The first time I told her, I was 4 years old and I had run away. They found me sleeping in a field in the middle of nowhere. Now, right there, what the hell? If my kid ran away at 4 years old and would rather sleep in a field than be in my house, it's time to check the house. What's wrong with the house?
Yeah, what's going on here?
Right. Well, they found me. It was in an area in Washington, and family was all around. So the whole family came out there, and they went to searching for me, and they found me. And Monster was at work because he worked graveyard. And she asked me, why did you run away? And when I told her as explicitly as a 4-year-old can, she slapped me across the room and called me a lying whore and sent me upstairs and said, I'll send your stepfather up to straighten you out when he gets home.
Oh, just what you needed.
Oh, I don't think I've ever prayed to die so hard in my sleep than I did that night.
And my thing with that too, if you don't mind, I got a 6 and a 4-year-old niece and nephew that, as my phone goes off, I guess I owe you a beer, as Stone Cold would say.
I'll take it. I'd rather have a shot.
All right, we'll do that then. But, in terms of, like I said, my niece is 6 and my nephew is 4. I could never even imagine. I'm pretty filthy with my mouth and stuff, but I could never imagine when they're around calling her a little whore.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wouldn't cross my mind.
What would you do if your niece came to you and told you, look, this person, and what a lot of people don't understand is, I see it. Over 90%, I think it's 92% of children that are sexually abused are abused by people in their inner family. And, 1 in 4 girls are abused, 1 in 6 boys are abused. We don't, and I'm sure it's more than 1 in 6 boys, because you guys don't talk.
No.
Even when you get older, you don't talk. No. And I get it. My 2 brothers, my brother Jamie committed suicide, and he got into drugs. He got into alcohol. Unfortunately, he got into crack. And I really believe it's because somehow, and I'm not sure, I tell everybody wrestling saved my life.
You're not the first person I heard say that.
I started out when I ran away to Portland at 14. I woke up, and this was after Monster had went to jail. I woke up to my bio mom, Sylvia. She had come in the house, and I was paying her now at 14, I was paying her $25 a week to sleep on her couch because I had a job. And never mind that she was getting, assistance from the state for all her, 5 kids, but she wanted another $25 a week for me. And I had babysat kids that night, and I was sleeping on the couch, and I woke up to her literally beating the shit out of me. I went from a dead sleep. She had went out to the bars, and she kept hitting me, and I somehow got up, and I was blocking her, mom. That's when I still called her mom. And finally, I didn't want to hit her because my grandfather raised me. You don't hit your mom. You don't hit your grandma, And I finally got her by the finger like this. You see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Finger on the knuckle, thumb up here, pressure. Took her
Yeah.
down to her knees without hurting her. I said, look, give me 15 minutes. I'll be out of here. And I packed my bags. And it was, I bet you, 3:00 in the morning. And I walked out in the stone cold dark in Salem, Oregon, not knowing where I was going to go. I ended up in Portland, sleeping in doorways, using newspapers for blankets. And I got involved in the LGBT crowd. They didn't have all the Q and all that at the time. It was just LGBT. Yeah. And it was basically the drag queens, and they put me up. They found a place for me to bunk inside, and I don't really remember how I got involved. It was probably that they were out there, with the rest of us, because there was a certain place all us runaway kids slept in downtown Portland. We called it the Wall. But anyway, they put me up, and they got me fake ID that said I was 18. So I was able to go to work, and I was working at a restaurant. I started going to the matches on Saturday. And then my DM at Denny's restaurant there on 23rd and Burnside came in, and I was starting my second shift. I worked Saturday night. Somebody didn't show up on Sunday. They asked me to stay. Well, anybody who has any knowledge about the restaurant business, if you're working graveyard shift, especially on Friday and Saturday, your uniform is just a little more tight and a little bit shorter than the rest of the crew was in the morning. Mm-hmm. Well, the DM came in, and I'm sitting there. I got my plates up and down my arms. I'm getting ready to go to a table full of people. And he starts right in the middle of the restaurant, starts razzing me. Now I'm sitting there with plates in my arms about my uniform. And I sat there and I listened to him. I listened to him and listened to him some more. And he was not quiet. And when he finally stopped, I said, "Are you done?" He said, "Yeah." And I set the plates down one by one. And at that time, working for Denny's, you had this brown uniform and a light tan or a tan uniform and a brown apron that you had. Popped off my apron, put it in his hand, and I told him, I said, "You can take this job, shove it up your ass." Well, the following Saturday, I went to matches, and by this time, I had been going long enough. I knew who Sandy Barr was, knew the security guys by name. I'd had a little interactions with some of the wrestlers. Getting autographs. I mean, just talking to them. And I walked in, and when I went to the matches, I dressed to the nines. I had a dress, nylons, candy high heels, and Sandy happened to be whispering in Peggy's ear about something. Peggy always put out tickets. And I looked at Sandy. I said, "I need a job." He said, "Great, you can start tonight." And I stood back and I went, "In this?" I said, "I can't start in this." He said, "I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:00. Well, I started working at his flea market, handing out tickets, working concessions, sweeping the floor.
Whatever needed to be done kind of deal.
Right. And then, of course, that the next, was it Friday? Yeah. Came to the thrift, his flea market Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, when the flea market shut down, we had to take up all the tables that were for the flea market, set up the ring. So that's, I started doing that. Then the next thing, he had me working in his print shop. I mean, I was working starting Friday night. You didn't sleep until Sunday evening when we left the flea market at 5:00. I mean, it was constantly going. Yeah. And one day Sandy came to me and he said, "Look, I don't know if you know it or not, but I've got a wrestling school." And he said, I'm training this girl, but I can't have her wrestling the guys. can you be a body? And of course, I looked at him. I said, does it pay? He said, of course it pays. Well, then I was training.
I'm in.
Training. And about a month and a half later, I looked around. The girl wasn't there anymore. I was still training, but it was a funny thing. I could train with the guys.
But she couldn't, yeah.
Yeah, I got tricked into becoming a professional wrestler. I was a fan. You know, I've still got the 8x10 that I got signed by Jimmy Snuka when I was 9 years old. But I had never even thought about getting into wrestling. Well, by the time I realized, you know, I'd been hooked, there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to become a professional wrestler.
So I want to answer your question because you asked me and you said you saw the bat in my hand. And obviously not going to stay on that topic, but to answer your question, if my niece had said any funny business was going on, it would have been, who was it? Yeah, let's go. I'm going on a manhunt. But
see that that's what broke the cycle in our home. Or house. I wouldn't call it a home. Is gentleman by the name of Don Maddox. We met him in Needles, and for some reason, when Sylvia and Bill decided one night that they wanted to move to Oroville, lo and behold, Don Maddox and Dolly, his wife, moved to Oroville too. Well, after the fourth time that we told Sylvia, damn, I mentioned her name. Oh, that's right. She's dead. She can't sue me. After we had told Sylvia about 4 times, and she didn't believe us, and of course she browbeat the boys into saying no, it didn't happen. Her and I were driving home. I don't know why she had me in the car, but pulled up in front of the house, and we had these 2 big glass doors. It was a southern house in Oroville, California. You know, the big high steps, the big crystal doors. And as we're walking up the steps, one of my brothers come running out of their bedroom. He was naked and was bleeding from his rectum. Well, then she had no choice. She couldn't browbeat anybody because it was right there in front of her face.
Yeah.
Now, you being a father, an uncle, a brother, if you had seen something like that, how long would the man have lived?
Not very long.
Would they have found enough of him to do a DNA test on?
My background, I'll put it this way, because I don't want to be like a Marty Jannetty. Marty, I love you, but yeah.
Love you too, Marty, but you're crazy as a fucking loon.
What you know the story I'm talking about, right? Where the whole
all about it. It would have nothing to do with railroads or anything like that, right?
No, I'll put it this way: with a family that hunts and fishes and stuff. To answer your question, there'd be places I know. I'm a Jersey guy, or think the old school mob. There'd be places they wouldn't be found.
Lime barrel in the middle of the desert.
That's all we're saying.
Yep.
But
don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again.
Yeah, we'll leave that as it is.
Yeah, we'll leave that as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
go ahead.
Instead of going into the house and raising hell, you know, finding the gun, finding a baseball bat, finding, you know, a glass pitcher, something, a brick, she starts acting like a woman scorned. Like she caught him with another woman. I mean, you would have had to been there to understand. Instead of calling the cops and having this man, at the very least, having this man arrested, she moved him upstairs in the house we were living in, into my bedroom, had us kids come downstairs and sleep in her bed with her, and then had us take his food to him. And one day, Don and Dolly showed up out of the blue, and Don told Dolly, he said, you know, take Sylvia in the kitchen, make some coffee. Me and Vicky are going to go to the grocery store and get some groceries. because although we had food stamps at the time, we never had food. Sylvia would sell the food stamps 50 cents on the dollar. Um, I really hated it when they got rid of commodities. You know, that 5 pound block of cheese, dude. But anyway, I'm in the car with Don. We don't get a half a block away from the house, and Don looks at me, and Don was a big old boy. And he looks at me and he says, all right, what the hell is going on in that house? Well, after getting your butt kicked, 8, 10, 12 times from opening your mouth, even my hard head learned to keep my mouth shut. And I said nothing. He looked at me. He said, bullshit, Vicky. Now tell me what the hell is going on. And I broke. And it was like Niagara Falls.
You let it all out.
I let it all out. And we went back to the house, never made it to the grocery store. We went back to the house, and Don walked in the door, and he looked at Sylvia, and he said, you got 2 choices. You can go to jail with him, or you can go to the police station with us right now and file charges. Your choice, lady. And Don was always very respectful with everybody, but most especially women. But the way he said lady, it was like, right. Your face.
He wasn't.
Yeah.
Don't need to say anything there,
Right. But anyway, Bill went to jail. He ended up in Vacaville. We ended up in Salem. And then I woke up, like I said, at 14, her beating the hell out of me. And that's how I ended up. That was the beginning of me, ending up in wrestling.
So I'm going to fast forward again, because you hinted at it and talked a little bit about it.
Mm-hmm.
You start waitressing, you end up going to the shows, you get connected with Sandy and everybody, and as you said, the security and some of the boys and everything. Yep. And well, before there, as I move on, I just poured another drink, folks. This is for those who've had similar stories. Do know people do love you out there, and
not only do we love you, but
treat you with respect, and there's.
But for the people out there that this has happened, and I'm talking as soon as you can talk at 3 or 4 years old, or if you're 90 years old and this has happened to you. That's why I put this story in my book. God love every one of you.
Yes.
Open your mouths. There's no shame
in telling your story.
That this generation and the last generation and the next generation, we put an end to this. It's no longer family secret.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So let's get into the more fun things.
Okay, sounds good.
So you're working out with some of Sandy's boys and whatnot, other female leaves. When does
there was only one other female?
Yes, but she departs, and you're the female body there. When does Velvet McIntyre come in? And also, were you there at the same time that Terry Allen comes in, who folks know as Magnum, when he does his whole deal?
Oh yeah. I was very much a part of that. Terry and I were, to put it gently, Terry and I were friends before either one of us were wrestlers.
Okay.
Terry is a great man. Terry earned everything he got in this business, and unfortunately, like me,
he had the accident and everything.
He had the accident. I had the accident. His career was cut short. But anyway, I don't know. I had.
Did they come in at the same time, Terry and Velvet, or?
No. Velvet and I had been training quite a while before Terry came in, and by the time Terry came in, Velvet and I were living at Sandy's house.
Okay.
I was living in a Wino motel off of Burnside. And
would take the bus, right?
Yeah, I used to have to take the bus, and Sandy Sandy used this as an excuse. Now, by this time, Velvet was already there, and she had come from Canada. So, of course, she was staying with Peggy and Sandy, or Sherry and Sandy. And one day I showed up late again because y'all know how great the buses run on time. And at the end of training, Sandy said, "Come on, I'm taking you to your house." I said, and basically, why? He said, "You're going to pack everything. You're getting in the car. You're coming to live with me. You'll be sharing a room with Velvet." So I ended up sharing a room with Velvet, chasing chasing Art and Sean out of our room. Little shits used to come in our room, get in our underwear drawer.
Were they Sandy's
Art
kids?
Bar and Sean Bar. I think
okay.
Art, I can't remember which one was older. I think Art was the older one. I think Art was 13 and Sean was 12. But those little snots, Lord have mercy. They kept me and Velvet on our toes.
And Art, if I remember correctly, and I, surprised I'm having a brain fart here, but Art was the one who made his name in Mexico, right?
Yes.
In the business?
Was that? Yes, that was Art. Yes. Sandy's son, Art Barr.
Yeah. Because I know Art worked with, I believe, a young Eddie Guerrero and, folks like but Art's
Eddie and
work
Hector
was known in Mexico. So
yes. And knowing that Sandy, I wasn't there when Sandy trained Art and Sean, but God bless their hearts, I know he was 3 times as tough on them as he was us. But when he trained us, there wasn't no women, girl, lady wrestlers and men wrestlers. You were a wrestler.
Yeah.
There were no, oh, well, you can't do that because you're a lady. You wrestled just like everybody else. But anyway, Velvet and I ended up at Sandy's and, running Art and Sean around, and we're training, and we didn't train like these young'uns do these days. And to tell you the honest to God truth, most of it I don't call training.
Was it like the Greco-Roman and takedowns? And how would you describe the training?
Well, very easy. There were 4 trash cans, one on each side of the ring. And it wasn't if you were going to throw up during training, it was what
is when
and what and were you going to hit one of the 4 garbage cans. What I went through and it was tough. It was tough. But I know what Sandy was doing. Sandy was weeding out the riffraff.
Yeah.
Which
was standard for the time.
I use the word riffraff, but what I mean is people whose heart was not truly in it. So back then, you were 100% wrestler. You were 100% in the business. It wasn't this. We didn't have any shoot jobs. Our shoot job was wrestling.
Yeah, because I heard Piper say this in an interview, one of his last interviews before he passed away. And we were joking about some extracurricular activities folks would do and such. Right. But the way he put it was, and I know it was Piper for sure that said this in his shoot interview.
I'll know it.
Yeah, but no, he was talking about today, guys on the independent scene and stuff, if you're not with a major company, might work as a butcher or working as a bank teller. They'd have shoot jobs, and wrestling was on the weekends.
Right.
Like you said. And he said this respectfully. We were a bunch of misfits where if we weren't in wrestling and part of the family, we'd probably be either dead or in jail.
Yep. We were the biggest dysfunctional family that God ever put on the face of the earth. And what's funny was, you get just like a house with a mom, a dad, Don and Sandy were mom and dad. And we get in a fight with somebody, for instance, Matt Bourne, God rest his soul, was my arch nemesis.
Yeah.
He was like the little boy on the school ground, pulling my pigtails. And I'm not going to lie, there's no sense in it. Probably every woman wrestler in the business and men wrestlers in the business have slept with another wrestler, because that's who you're around. That's who we were around 24/7, 365.
Your own contained unit, in a sense.
Exactly. I mean, it's like working in a business office. Who do you go to lunch with? Who do you socialize with after work? Why is there a clause that you cannot sleep with your subordinates?
It's the people you're around the most and you work with. Like
exactly.
You said,
but anyway,
it was no different in wrestling,
Right, exactly. But Matt was the little kid on the school ground and pulling my pigtails, and I just wasn't interested. Matt was a spoiled, rotten brat.
Well, he was a generational guy. Is that why he would be Is that why he would? You would say he was spoiled?
He started out in Portland with his dad.
Tough Tony Bourne.
Yes. Anyway, one day, and sorry, this is gonna be gross, but I came in, and Matt was in a mood, and he reached into my grip and he pulled my underwear out and he said, "Look, the bitch can't even wash your ass right." And I just looked at him matter of factly. I said, "Matt, that's blood."
Ooh, yeah.
He never dropped anything so fast in his life. But the next Thursday, we were in Eugene, and I had my gear on, and Tony was already there. Matt hadn't showed up yet. And Sandy had always told me, when one of the old timers opened their mouth, you shut your mouth, you open your ears, and you do what you're told.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tony said, "Princess, come here." And I walked over to Tony. Tony says, "I want you to do something." He said, "I want you to sit on my lap." And I kind of raised one eyebrow. Not as good as Dewey does, but I raised one eyebrow.
Things trend worldwide.
And
I'm a fan of yours, Dewey's, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Put us in your movies, but
if I hadn't broke my neck.
But hey, put us in the movies. But go ahead with the story.
Anyway, Tony says, "I want you to sit on my lap. I want you to put your arms around my neck. And I want you to go with anything I do." Hence when an old timer speaks, you shut your mouth, open your ears, and do what you're told.
Before you continue with the story.
Yes, sir.
I got to know, because I don't know much. I'm aware of Tough Tony Bourne and stuff. Yeah, just fan of the history of the business. But was he a respectable guy before you continue with the story?
Most respect. Treated.
Okay.
Total
like a Larry Hennig?
Totally and complete gentleman. In the Pacific Northwest, if you came in and you were a prima donna or you were an asshole,
you were sniffed out.
You didn't last long.
Right. Okay.
You would not last long. And it wasn't Don or Sandy that took care of it. That was taken care of in the dressing room.
Boots to asses.
That's a whole nother thing we'll get to, but go ahead with the story. So he says,
anyway,
let's go with it.
Right. I sit on Tony's lap. I put my arms around his neck, and we're sitting there. We're just passing the day. We're talking about matches. And all of a sudden, Tony leans me back and puts a lip lock on me from hell. There's something to be said about the old boys. But he said,
use your imagination, folks, but go ahead.
Right. There you go. But he said, go with it. So I went with it. And all of a sudden you heard clunk. Because this is back in the day when we had the steel briefcases, the thick, and you hear thump. And then I hear, "Oh, hell fucking no." Tony brings me back up, releases the lip lock, looks over me at Matt, who had just walked in the door, and said, "I will not have you disrespect my wife, your new stepmother, for a solid week. For a solid week. I ate with Tony. I rode with Tony. I stayed in the motel with Tony. If there was a motel. If you saw Tony, you saw me. For a solid week, Matt Bourne thought I was his new stepmama.
You're welcome.
That's a great rib. I don't get that's great.
Well, he left me alone after that.
Oh, that shit's great. You can't pull that shit nowadays, you know. That's what I love about the old school. You can't pull that shit nowadays.
Well, you can, but
you can't. You can, but you know, it's a whole different.
But nowadays, the ribs, I don't consider them ribs. And I'm going to tell you what, if somebody, you know, I was on the road with Davey Boy Smith in the territory with Davey.
Oh, that couldn't have been good.
I let him know right off the bat, you pull that crap, and I mean literally crap on me.
I know exactly.
Give your soul to God, because your ass is grass and I'm a lawnmower.
How tall are you, Private? Sir, 5'9", sir! 5'9". I didn't know they stacked shit that high.
Why do you sound like Arlie? What's his name? From Full Metal Jacket. Arlie Emery. Yeah, he says that exact line.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Give your ass to God. Yeah.
Yeah. You know where I'm going. That's the exact line.
Well, you know, we pulled fun ribs back in the day.
There was a difference between the fun rib and the
crap.
Yeah.
If somebody, if Davey had pulled something like that on me, there would have been something happen. He'd ended up naked in the ring.
I'm gonna rip your balls off so you cannot contaminate the rest of the world.
You know, I mean, there's a way to pull the stitches out of Lycra, you know, and put just a little bit of glue on them, enough to hold them together till you get warmed up.
I'll put it this way for the modern fan. It'd be Owen Hart ribs compared to allegedly a JBL rib, where he was more mean, supposedly. Where Owen was more fun with his ribs, it'd be ha all that.
Yeah.
That's where she's getting at that. You can laugh and
it was a story that you could tell to your grandchildren.
Yeah.
You know, some of the ribs that I've heard of, I mean, like, and I can't remember who I did it to, but one of the boys aggravated me, and he went to, you know, I can't remember what he did. He went out to go to the office or something. I super glued his boots to the ceiling.
Sounds like.
And I had help with it.
Did you teach Sean Waltman this shit?
Do what?
Did you teach Sean Waltman some of this shit? Yeah, the soup with the super glue and.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was one day we had a prima donna come into Portland, and I can't remember his name to save my soul, but and he was a prima donna. You know, he strutted like a fancy rooster. Yeah. But
I won't say Terry Taylor, but go ahead.
No, actually, Terry was not a prima donna when I knew him.
Just rumors that I heard later on in his career. I'm joking.
Well, there may be a reason behind that, and I know it.
Yeah.
But that's not for public consumption.
Yeah, we're not gonna go there, folks.
But anyway, this one prima donna came in, and it was bad enough that he was a prima donna, but he was a gimme. You know, can you give me this? Can you give me that? He always, you know, needed wrist tape, or he needed, you know, oil, or he needed aspirin, or he always needed something. There was never a night he walked in the dressing room that he wasn't gimme.
But it wasn't. It wasn't on the other side that if somebody needed this to return the favor.
Right. Exactly. And anyway, I don't know what he did to Buddy Rose.
Oh boy, this can't be good.
But there was one day he walked up to Buddy and you got a couple aspirin, brother? And I should have known by the grin on Buddy's face. Sure, here you go. And then Buddy says,
receipt's coming.
come on, we got to watch this match. And it was a TV match. It was Saturday night. So you got the heels on one side, you got the baby faces over here. Everybody is out of the dressing room. That's a dead giveaway. When everybody's watching the match,
curtain jerking.
Yep. Oh well, we didn't have a curtain.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know exactly. But anyway, started noticing, and I didn't really notice it at first. And this guy was like white, and he was so white, he was fluorescent. You could see through it. But all of a sudden, you could see his face kind of turned red. And then before it was all over, his whole body was red. Now he's on TV. What I didn't know, and what nobody in the dressing room except
what did Buddy give him?
Niacin, an overdose of niacin.
You want to get high?
Won't kill you, but it's like eating 15 oranges. Now this poor guy is in the ring. He's turning bright red, and it's like he's got the measles. All you want to do is scratch, but he can't stop and scratch because he's on TV.
He's in the middle of a match and the whole bit.
That's it. At that time, it was like, I think, a 30-second delay.
Holy shit.
That guy, for some reason, never asked anybody for anything in the dressing room again.
I don't understand why. I can't figure it out.
All of a sudden, he had everything he needed. It was amazing.
I can't figure it out what happened there. But
he was one of them that didn't last but a few months.
But before we leave Portland, two things I want to bring up. And what was the town you mentioned a few minutes ago?
Eugene.
Okay. And that's yes. So the story I heard from several people, like Moondog and a few other people who work in the area.
$50 story?
No.
Oh.
What he would do, it was across the board. I've heard that one, yes. But there was, I think it was a Piper again that told this story when we were chatting. And he said other places as well. When you worked for Elton would, soon as you broke a smile when you got paid, that he would cut off the funds. It'd be all in ones. And obviously he then tells the story, and other people have confirmed the story and such, that in the locker room with you guys, with the boys, Elton was given a rah-rah speech, all that fun stuff. And and allegedly that, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head here. Somebody in that crew may have taken Elton's short cigar that he was smoking, maybe do a little twist from the behind, put it back
Oliver
down.
Would never do anything like that.
Again, we can't see why this shit would happen. But yeah, the Elton's short cigar may have been twisted in nether regions in the behind.
It may have been used as
a suppository,
yes. Mm-hmm.
as rumor and legend would go. Then put back on the table. Elton finishes his speech, takes the cigar and starts smoking again without noticing a thing, and goes, "Man, it smells like shit in here."
Oh man, I'll wait till you come out. Boy, bring your ass off up in here. What you talking about? You wait till I come out. I smelled your shit for 22 years. Now you can't smell mine for 5 minutes.
Do you know how hard it was to not laugh? Do you know
you were here for this then?
Almost choked to death in the dressing room.
You were in here for this then. Supposed story.
Oh yeah. This supposes. Yeah, that's one of the stories I was there for. Yeah, and of course you know about the $25-$50 shoot, right?
Yeah, where they would do the shoot in the ring, but the boys would flip a coin and then they would
and then they split it right down the middle.
Yeah, right in the locker room. Elton would get his rocks off that way, but the boys were in on it.
Yep. Well, and look, now here's one story that I'm going to tell about Portland, and this will tell you how much of a family we were. And it actually happened in Eugene. I hadn't told any of the boys. Nobody knew, why I ended up on my own at 14. I hadn't told anybody about my childhood at that time.
Yeah.
And I get to the arena, I get dressed, and Rip comes in, and he said, Vicky, you got a phone call. Go to Elton's office. You got a phone call. It's your mother. Well, my first thought was somebody died. You know, so I
Getting
go
a call at work, yeah.
Or worse, yeah. So I go running to the phone, and bio mom says, well, your stepfather's going to be at the matches tonight. He wants to see you.
What the fuck? Can I say what the?
Yeah, you can say what the
I'll
fuck.
put it.
That's
That's been what going through my head.
I don't know what the look on my face was, but I walked in the dressing room and I sat down and I'm trying to compose myself because
all that shit from your past is
PTSD. You know, I know what our guys are talking about when they come back. I really do. You go back, it's smell, taste, vision. You're right back there.
All that shit's kicking up in your head. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and Rip walks up to me, and he said, Princess, what's wrong? I said, nothing. He said, bull fucking shit.
He knew something was up with you.
Oh, yeah. And so in a couple of minutes, I told Rip basically the whole story as well as I could tell it in a couple of minutes.
And I love Rip Rogers. He's a no bullshit kind of guy.
Oh.
In my dealings with him.
Yeah. He would. The best friend you could ever have and the worst enemy you would ever want.
Yeah, Rip is no nonsense guy. In my dealings
no nonsense. Well, he looked at me and he had dragon eyes. There was fire coming out of his eyes. Because like I said, I hadn't told anybody about what had happened to me.
And knowing Rip the little bit I do, that can't be good.
Well, before I knew it, within 10 minutes, Velvet and I's single match went from a single match to a mixed tag team with each team having a manager on the floor.
Okay.
So we're talking about me and Velvet, 5 guys, including the referee. Add 2 more security, that's 7. And Rip walked up to me, and by this time, I lost it. I was crying. I had lost it. And he walked up and he said, baby, and it, you know, that it wasn't anything romantic or anything like that. It was just, baby girl.
No, I know.
Baby girl, you go out. This is what's going to happen. When you see him, you point to him, and then you turn your pretty head and look the other way.
Give me the Iggy in.
Well, I never saw him. But I did notice when I got back to the dressing room after the matches that there were about 4 or 5 guys missing. The dressing room was almost empty. I never saw my stepfather. Have not heard from him. You know, I heard from him once through my bio mom, once I went to South Carolina. But from that point forward, during being in Canada, working a year with Al Tomko, Don Owens, and Ed Moretti, never heard from him.
Ed's who I meant when I said Mad Dog earlier, but go ahead.
Yeah, Ed Moretti, another
nicest guy in the world.
Yes, sir. Couldn't ask for a better friend.
Yeah.
And see, that's the way we were. You know, I mean, even when I got on the road, when I started traveling, you know, working for Moo, we were still those people that I knew in the Pacific Northwest. If I came into a town and one of them was there, be it Buddy, Piper, you know, even Matt, the girls were taken care of.
Yeah.
I knew before I left the match that night, okay, I got to follow this car because they're taking us to the motel, the right motel.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't careful in some areas, especially in New York, you check in the wrong motel, And Wendy and I did one time, and I picked up my grip, and there was a used condom on the bottom of it in this motel room. Needless to say, we got our money back and slept in the car that night. But we were always taken care of in Louisiana with Bill Watts. It didn't matter what territory that we went into. If one of Velvet Knives brothers was there, we didn't have to worry about anything. And unfortunately, being in the dressing rooms today, I don't see that as much as I used to. You know, we were talking about the training earlier. It's not only the training, you know, it's the brotherhood. Like I said, I might get in a fight with Matt Boren. Matt might piss me off. But if Matt said, I need, you were there. Didn't matter.
Well, I can't believe we've been recording for 50 minutes. But how are you on time?
I'm fine. I'm at home.
Okay, cool.
I got my glass of iced tea, you know.
Well, I finished my Chevets.
It.
I finished my Chevets, the bottle. But we're having such a good conversation here. And you bring up a good point there. And we were joking about it prior to hitting the little red button. But you were, especially at that time, we've hinted and danced around it a little bit, even though we've been direct with it. Wrestling, especially in that time period, were maybe a bunch of misfits. But you guys also on the same side of that were family because of the closeness. And I notice, and I'm not saying they don't have it in current times in AEW, WWE, all that stuff, because of things we've seen with, like, say, the death of Bray Wyatt or John Huber and things like. Yeah, I'm not, because the guys who worked with these guys, right, and Brody Lee and Bray Wyatt and such. But I would say back in your day, there was, and you only had a 4-year career, but in that era, previous era, before everything was national, there was a closeness with you guys. It was truly, you may have been misfits, but you were truly a family and always looked out for each other, like you said, with Matt and everybody else, and Piper and Buddy.
And for some of us, you know, like Piper, like me, I could mention other names. It was the first family we really ever had.
Exactly.
You know, and
when did that click for you that you had like a this was my family?
That night in Eugene. That night in Eugene when the boys stepped up, like, I mean, I always knew that, you know.
But there had to have been the definitive moment, like you said, that night in Eugene.
That was the definitive moment when Rick.
Okay.
When Rick looked at me and said, "Bull fucking shit," and then
you knew
what he did and what they did. I knew.
There was that. Yeah.
You know, I didn't know. It's things happened that I even found out in the last 10 years. One of them was when I was staying at Sandy's. I didn't know that he had one of these sophisticated alarm systems. You know, that if you opened a window, there was a speaker in his office or in his bedroom that went, window number 3 has been opened. Well, me being, you know, at 14, I was 34. You know, and
you were wise beyond your years, as my grandfather always told me.
I wouldn't say wise beyond my years, ornery beyond my years.
But you also had to be smarter too beyond your years at the time.
This is true too, and I don't wish that on anybody.
No, we're not. I'm just saying you had, because of the situation that you grew up in. You had to be.
I had to grow up. My brothers and sisters called me mama because I was the one who changed their diapers. I was the one who, you know, made the oatmeal in the morning, you know. So yeah, I had
you were the responsible one in that at that time.
Exactly. And if I didn't do it, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was at Scott Teal's reunion in Tennessee, and Eric Emery was there.
Okay.
And Eric walks up to me and he gives me a hug, and he knew me as Vicky because he left Portland before I started wrestling.
Okay.
So
he knew you as the fan.
Right. Right. And Eric comes up, gives me a hug, and we were talking. All of a sudden, he looks at me. He says, "Do you know how many sleepless nights you cost me?" What? And I went, "What?" Now, remember, I said I didn't know that Sandy had this alarm system. Well, every once in a while, I'd get a wild hair. I'd open the back window. I'd crawl out, and I'd head towards the bomber because that's where the party was. And I never...
Soccer wrestlers with a wild hair?
And I never could figure out. Sandy was, I guess, living about a half a mile from Chautauqua Sports Arena. And before I could get all the way down to North Lombard to where the freeway was, one of the boys would always show up and pick me up. And Eric
I can't figure out why.
I never could figure. I just thought I was blessed, And Eric looks at me. Do you know how many sleepless nights you caused me? I said, huh? He said, every time you snuck out, that damn alarm would go off, and Sandy would call one of us. He'd keep calling numbers until he could get one of us in the room and say, would you go get that crazy bitch? She's out walking again.
I can't figure it out. Wrestlers with a wild hair up their ass. Yeah. I can't put two and two together here, folks.
The difference between where the bomber was and where Chautauqua Sports Arena was like 45 minutes.
But he was making those phone calls in that 45 minutes. And
yeah.
So
and that was another part of it. That's just like I said, I was a little sister.
Yeah. So obviously in ring you became tag champ with Velvet, which all that. But before I fully completely leave from Portland, I heard a story right before we jumped on here. And I got to ask you about it because I found it funny because it fits the character or the person, the character and the person, if that makes sense. And obviously, yes, I know I've mentioned his name already in Roddy Piper. But
oh Lord, which story we're going to talk about now?
Yes. But we can spend all night just talking about
my
Roddy.
God, with some of the crap Piper pulled, you ain't kidding.
Everybody wants to be like Roddy Piper.
Oh, and God bless him, he was one of a kind, I'll put it that way.
Yep.
And
give you the shirt off his back in a snowstorm.
Yes. But Piper was all the credit he gets, he certainly deserves. And I'll put it this way before I go here. I think everybody deserves their flowers before they pass. And I think Piper got some of his flowers before he passed because obviously, everything was well-deserved. He had fun and there might have been extracurricular activities, yada, 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 all that stuff.
Yeah, but and I'm going to put the butt up there.
It was
Piper, when it came to his family came first.
Oh, absolutely. And I know two of his kids. Absolutely. Yeah, and I talk to two of his kids on a semi-regular basis. So, yeah, obviously, family's first.
Was Teal his first daughter?
No.
Okay,
Second.
his first daughter, I don't remember her name, and forgive me for that.
Ariel was number 2.
Okay. His first daughter's name was almost Chelsea Marie.
I know it's not that, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was me, Office, Sika, and Pipe. And Pipe had just found out that Kitty was pregnant.
Yeah.
And he was trying to figure, and I think he knew it was a girl, because we were sitting there bouncing off names. Me, Appa, Sika, and Piper were sitting there bouncing because Piper was trying to figure out a name for his. I mean, you think he was wound up? Then you should have seen him when he found out he had his dog.
And here's the funny thing. And obviously, I know different from knowing the kids and everything like that. But the public persona for most of what you knew Piper for, obviously, he became there was a joke about Papa Piper and all that stuff when he found out he was having a child. And it might have been Carolina's or whatever. But people would rib him with Papa Piper, whatever. But what you knew publicly for most of the time that you knew Roddy, you would never expect him to be a girl dad because 3 out of the 4 kids were female.
Right.
But he was when you talk to Ariel and Colt and whatnot, those are the 2 that have been up front in public because Colt has had wrestling and MMA and all that stuff. Ariel's now wrestling and such. He was such the sensitive guy and things we saw later in years publicly. But at the time, you would never picture him being a girl father. But some of the stories I heard makes perfect sense that I would
have hated to be the guy that first dated his first daughter.
Oh God. Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, could you imagine?
Oh, I can see him at the table cleaning a shotgun when the guy walks in. I can see that.
But here's the look on your face. Before you even get there, could you imagine that, okay, you're a couple dates in, whatever the case is, and the daughter says, oh, by the way, when you get to that point where you're going to meet mom and dad and all that stuff, oh, by the way, my dad's Roddy Piper.
And Piper was known, even if you weren't a wrestling fan, Piper was known.
You knew who he was.
Yes.
When you said, oh, by the way, my dad is,
Right.
Oh, God, I couldn't imagine being in that.
Oh, my God. No. No. I wouldn't want it to be my son, and I love my son because I raised him to be a gentleman. But I would not have wanted to have a boy that was dating Piper. The first date that Roddy Piper met with his first daughter. I mean, he may have eased off and grown
with Ariel and the baby, the youngest.
Yeah, when the oldest got there, but can you imagine how he was with his first daughter?
Oh God, that could.
I'm surprised she wasn't in a cage.
But the story I was gonna go with was
okay,
and I heard you tell it was, and I'll have to talk to Ariel about that style. Teal, as people know her.
Right.
But the story I heard was he apparently cut a promo he was having a feud with Buddy Rose and all that stuff. The belly button joke and you guys, the boys, when I say the boys, everybody, talent in the back, in case people are living under a rock. You guys are thinking, holy shit, he's done. That's it.
I've got enough room in my belly button for a cockroach egg, Buddy Rose's brain, and the heart of a promoter. And
you guys are thinking he's done. That's it.
Every head just dropped, and it was silent. You never hear of a dressing room that's dead silent. And all of a sudden, here comes Don. Now, you knew Don's mood by the way he walked. A lot of times he'd be carrying around a piece of paper or an envelope or something, and he was paying attention to that, or he was looking at this. But if he got that goose step walk, somebody was losing at least a pound of butt. And we're all sitting in the dressing room, and here comes Don, and he's doing that goose step, and he walks up to Piper. He said, "Let me tell you something." That was the best damn interview I've ever seen.
Well, the rest of you are thinking he's fired. That's it.
Oh, we
He's
knew
done.
he was fired. That would have been, to us, him saying the heart of a promoter would have been just as bad as cussing. Because if you cussed on an interview.
And like you said earlier, the 30-second delay.
Yeah. If you cussed on an interview, don't even bother getting dressed. Go get your grip, grab your clothes, get in your car.
You're done.
You're done.
Eric, did you just say the F word?
Jew? No, he's talking about fuck. You can't say fuck in school, you fucking fat ass.
Kyle!
And I'm talking, and I don't mean the F word or anything like that. Today saying fuck on TV is like saying and the.
It's a whole different ballgame we're in.
If you said damn or shit or God forbid goddamn, that was it.
Like you said, get your bags, you're done.
Right. Well, this was back in the day where we had when not only was the dressing room a family, the fans were a family. You had 3 generations coming to the matches. You had grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, daughter and son. It
was a family thing when people went to shows and watched on TV and such.
Right. And yes, sometimes there was blood. Sometimes people got their head busted open. But people were more worried about the cussing than they were the grotesque.
Yeah.
But back then, if somebody got their head busted open, it went the hard way. And so it wasn't anything that was planned.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should say this, and I know you told this story before. There might have been a battle royal, and you may have had gotten busted open.
Yep.
And I'll leave it like that. And there was a story with Tales of the Territories on Vice with your brother coming to defend you. You didn't know he was in the crowd. Was this the brother that passed away?
No, this is the brother that I've got 2 brothers that passed away. This is the only brother I've got left.
Okay.
And to tell you how much we were into kayfabe then, my family was not smart. And it really had, I guess, I had the vision of both sides. I was a dyed-in-the-wool wrestling fan. When the great Buddy Rose feud happened and Piper within 20 seconds went from the most hated man in the Pacific Northwest to the most loved, I was right there with the rest of the crowd. Watching, I hated, actually I didn't hate, the Kiwis terrified me.
Which is, I'm going to go ahead. But
Butch and Luke terrified me.
Rightfully so. They were hardcore before hardcore.
Oh my God, yes. But my brother and my mother were in the crowd, and I knew they were because we were in Salem, which at that point was my hometown at the time. And we were in the Salem Theater, and Buddy and Rick and I had done some interviews about this 8-man battle royal, and I've got it on DVD somewhere. We did an interview, and Buddy started talking about the only place a woman belongs is in the bed, in the kitchen, or pregnant and barefoot. And of course, I gave him the God Almighty nut shot.
You bitch. No, go ahead.
Oh, wait, I did it twice. I got Rick Oliver too. And this was before the 8-man battle royal. It's Saturday night. We're doing promos in the Crow's Nest, and I kicked Buddy in the nuts, and then Rip come up running his mouth, so I kicked him in the nuts too. And I went back to the dressing room, and Rip was throwing up. He had one of the white 5-gallon buckets, and he was throwing up. And I walked in the dressing room, I saw it, and I lost it. I turned into a little girl and started crying. And I'm sitting there watching Rip throw up, and I don't realize that everybody is still here, but I was the last interview, but yet everybody's still here. And all of a sudden, Rip raises his head up. He says, guys, I can't do this to her. But anyway, we do the 8-man battle royal, and I ended up second to last. I thought I helped Buddy. I thought Buddy and me threw Rick out. Obviously, he hit the mat instead of the floor, and it was me and Buddy in the ring. Well, we all know Buddy was 237 pounds. Yeah, right.
No.
Gotta love him. He was only 237 pounds.
And I'm not going to get political here, but is it the same person that says they might be 215?
Yeah.
Okay, similar kind of deal.
Or it was me being announced at 140 pounds.
Well, I wasn't going to go there, but I'm thinking about what you hear.
Well, I was solid muscle, though.
Yeah, there's a difference between muscle and fat.
Right. And Buddy, what a lot of people don't realize is, although he jiggled, Buddy was a strong man.
And I'll compare it to a Dusty Rhodes, where people would look at him and go, he ain't a professional athlete, and say what you want about wrestling, but he was one of the most athletic people.
Yeah.
Listen, how many people go 60 minutes looking like him, doing what you guys did?
Buddy?
But you know what I'm going at with that.
I know exactly what you're going at.
Where people would look at you and go, what the fuck? But yet.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly.
And Buddy, I've seen Buddy go in a 60-minute Broadway. It may have not been on TV, of course, because they never are 60 minutes. But
the attraction was the house show at the time.
Right. But anyway, I'm in the ring, think Rick is out. I look at Buddy, and of course I'm going, shit. And Buddy ends up chasing me through in Salem, we were in an old school theater.
Okay.
Which had the stage, the raised stage. And I mean old school to where it was brick and the bricks were inside. There wasn't any paneling put over it or anything. So I end up running from Buddy. We go up the aisle, down the aisle, come down another aisle. And my brother and my bio mom both reach out their feet to try to trip Buddy. Because I'm running from Buddy because I got a little sense. And we end up back in the ring. Buddy and Rip end up grabbing me by the arm, and they throw me. I hit the brick wall like five foot up and slide down, and my head's busted open, and I'm laying there. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes my little brother. And I think at the time, he was 3 years younger than me. He may have been 15 or 16. Okay. And he's straddling me. Well,
the boxer straddle, right?
Oh yeah, he had perfect. I mean, he had the stance, left foot forward, right foot back, and draw it. And he looked at Buddy. He said, "You touch her against you, son of a bitch, and I'll kill you." Well, Sandy sent the security guards to come get my brother, of course.
Yeah. Now, did Sandy know that was your brother, or was he thinking just?
Oh yeah, He knew. He knew who they were. I had introduced the family to him by then. I mean, how can you not?
Yeah, true.
And they got free seats when they were in Salem. You had at that time, I think you had 5 tickets that you could give away at different sets. But at that time, it was only my little sister and Doug that were at home. So, and Jennifer was too young. She was like 3, I think, at the time. Okay. Maybe older, not old enough to come to the matches.
To the show, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, they were tripping him when he was chasing me, and my brother ended up straddled, perfect boxer stance.
He's defending his sister.
Yeah. He was going to get in between me and the wall, and I had to sit him down. And it wasn't to smarten him up. I sat him down and I told him, I said, look, no matter what happens in that ring, you can never do this again. That's my job. No matter what happens, you need to stay in your seat because you have no right to put your hands on any other professional wrestler. Now, why would I smarten them up? Why would I do that? Why would I take the dream away?
Yeah. And that's where I was kind of going to go with that. Because on the other side of that, too, is why would you smarten them up? But also, yeah, I mean, there's
two
that
sides
time
of
period.
this. Yeah.
At that, especially at that time period.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. But why? See, my family was a wrestling family. I started watching wrestling probably before I was out of a blasted, carry-all seat with my grandmother and my grandfather, at their house on Saturday nights. Yeah, I grew up watching Dutch Savage, Dale Lewis, Red Bastien, Sandy Barr. Even though I'm old school, these were old school at the time. My granddad was in the recliner. I was on the floor, cross-legged, had the bucket full of greens, snap beans that I was snapping, and we'd sit there and watch wrestling.
And the local 1 hour show from
right. And I know what I felt about wrestling as a fan.
Why would you take that away from?
Right. Why would you steal that from somebody? And that's probably one of the biggest things that pisses me off about Vinnie Mac. How many people did he steal the dream from?
I get it.
And how could you do that? Really?
Yeah.
For a few dollars to get the wrestling commission off your ass? Your dad took care of the wrestling commission for what, 30 years before you took it over? Are you that stupid?
And his grandfather before that?
And are you that stupid or ignorant that you don't know how to take care of the wrestling commission?
And like I said, his grandfather just before that.
Exactly. And in my opinion, and here we go, left turn Clyde.
That's fine. I
have no respect for Vinnie Mac whatsoever. None.
And I can understand why. But with that being said, obviously there's been some recent changes on the business front with the merger and different things like that. And I know you haven't really watched their particular product for obvious reasons, the respect for Vinnie Mac and all that stuff.
Well, I haven't watched it since 1987 when they had Moolah and May on there in them schoolgirl outfits.
In 97 then, later in the Attitude Era.
80. It had to be 87 because I was.
No, they were doing this stuff, Moolah and May, in the late 90s, close to 2000.
All right. Well, I may have seen that. The night that I saw it was when they were in Kuwait.
Yeah, that would have been 97.
Couldn't have been 97. That was.
I know they did a Kuwaiti tournament in 97, but go ahead. I'm not saying I wasn't with you. Go ahead.
I could swear it was when I was living in Franklin at the house, but you know what? That was 26 years ago, and I'm lucky to remember what I've done walking into a room while I walked in there. But when I saw the Kuwait deal, the Triple H and Santa's Little Helper, and Moo and May, and the finish was squatting on their face, and it smelled so bad it made him pass out.
We're talking Attitude Era. Yeah, we're talking Attitude Era there. But with that being said, yeah, I can't blame you. Don't get me wrong. I totally get where you're going from. Because I would like to think you get enough good vibe from me as far as the old school knowledge and
Right. And don't get me
So I
wrong. I
get what
understand.
you're coming from.
I understand there are people, many people obviously, who enjoy the WWE product. I just don't happen to be one of those. And I don't hold it against anybody who is the WWE product or who enjoys it.
And I'm not sitting here because most people go, oh, he's just a smart marketer. He's this, he's that. Talking about myself. But I've been around enough of the legends and stuff that I get it and learned from the legends in previous generations. So I get what you're saying there. But what I was going to ask there was with the recent merger and the McMahons not fully owning the company anymore and just things that have happened. Can you see yourself possibly watching a WWE product again? Because it's not fully Vinnie Mac.
I won't say I will, and I won't say I won't. When the first time Vinnie Mac turned the business over to Triple H, I actually watched for about 15 minutes.
NXT and stuff, yeah.
And I was almost willing to give it a chance until then the next week or so, now all of a sudden Vinnie Mac walks back in and he's
putting his hands back in the pot. Yeah.
And I'm saying, oh, hell no. I will not put $1 in Vinnie Mac's pocket. I broke my neck in the ring working for him in the first week of September 1984. Do you know I'm still waiting on a phone call from that man to see if I'm all right?
I wouldn't hold your breath.
Oh, believe me, I'd be dead already if I did.
All right, so let's go there because obviously the other thing I wanted to, before I touched on the neck injury and everything that ended your career, there was something I was reading, and we know everything on the internet is true.
Well, of course it is. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah, but there was something, and I laughed being the old school fan that I am, so I got it. But on the other hand, being a historic guy, where my background's in history and stuff, I could see why there was major heat there. But I'm curious to know, and I heard you say foot in mouth kind of deal. That's the best way I'll put that. You did a tour in the Dominican Republic, and at the time, their vice president may have passed away. And why I preface that with my historical knowledge, and I can't think of the guy's name, or the vice president's name, but they looked at their vice president like we here in the States would look at JFK.
Oh, wow. You have done your homework.
Once in a while, I know how to read.
Direct quote.
Once in a while, I know how to read, but go ahead.
Once in a while. Well, what a lot of people don't know is I have always wanted to be a heel. Always.
In the words of Jim Cornette, she's a heel, damn it.
Yep. I always wanted to be a heel. No disrespect intended, but the baby faces.
You were working a gimmick. You were working a gimmick, baby.
You know, the baby faces were just not my ballpark. I was a heel at heart. When I got out of state, I got to be the heel. I got to turn that evil demon loose. And we get there, and their vice president had died. And like you said, I had no idea at the time that they loved their vice president like we love JFK.
Yes.
And they had literally shut the entire country down for 3 days.
We're talking about the Dominican Republic at the time.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Santo Domingo. And they bring this guy. I can't remember if they brought the guy or if I went to the radio station. But anyway, they've got an interpreter there. And the guy asked me, well, how do you like our country? How do you like being in Santo Domingo? And I said, it's a dirty little country with dirty little people who have begged me for 5 years to come here. And now, just because your vice president dies, you postpone my match?
After years of begging me to come down. And
right. And I didn't see the translator in the background doing this. Well, little did I know it meant I was cutting my own throat. First night we went to the matches were sold out. Wendy and I were semi-main event. And they had 2 security guards walking me out to the ring. And I get in the ring, and they had oranges, not the size of baseballs like we have. They had oranges the size of small grapefruits.
And people need to realize in that part of the world,
same way with oranges in California.
Everything was batteries and oranges, and it was.
So anyway, I end up, and I was lousy at baseball, but this one time I ended up and I caught an orange, and peripheral vision, I caught exactly who threw it. I saw the guy throw it, and I caught it, and I threw it back, and I beamed him right between the eyes.
And why am I thinking the movie, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, Slapshot from the late 70s, the Paul Newman movie, where they go into the fight in the crowd. Where they go in the fight in the crowd. It was that guy.
What are you guys doing?
Putting on the foil every game.
Yeah, you want some?
Right. Yeah, I've seen every Paul Newman movie known to man.
But you know where I'm going with. It was the Hanson brothers.
Yeah, you knew. Yeah, it was just like I had a laser.
You knew who threw that.
I threw it back, and for I think it was a week or 2 weeks, Wendy and I were there. Every match was sold out. The second night we went out, I was surrounded by security guards. People have scissors. They're trying to cut my pigtails off. They're reaching.
I'm surprised they weren't trying to stab you.
Well, they're reaching through, and when I leave the match each night, I end up with purple, like they give you purple nurples on your arm. And
how the hell did that happen? Oh, wait.
Right. Right. Oh, wait, right?
You hear the stories of everybody going, what the?
Right. But, yeah, I was told not to leave the motel. I ate. If I was not at the arena, I was in my motel room. I did not leave the motel. If I wanted to get something to eat, I got it on the way home when they drove me to the motel. Did not go to any bars, nothing like that in San Antonio.
And this is before Brody, folks, the Bruiser Brody incident. But go ahead.
Yes, thank God that was before Brody.
Just so we give a time frame with this.
Right.
Go ahead.
That was, I believe, 82.
Who, Brody or you?
Me.
Okay.
I believe that was 82 when I was in there. It was either late 82 or early 83. That was part of a tour that Wendy and I did. We started out in New York, left New York, went to Japan for 2 months, went back to New York, jumped over to Puerto Rico, then went to Trinidad, Santo Domingo. I believe it was back to Japan, and then came back. And the first time that we had stepped foot on American soil in 3 or 4 months, we landed in Texas and were working for the Von Erichs for a week.
Okay.
Wendy and I had a lot of matches together.
Well, speaking of which, we might as well go there. Wendy Richter, she's talking about. What was it like working with her? Because I know for a time period, she was known as Cowboy Wendy Richter.
Yeah.
But then obviously most people know her as the Cyndi Lauper, all that fun stuff after you got hurt. But what was it like working with Wendy?
Wendy earned everything she got. When we were traveling together, if she couldn't find a gym that was close by, or we weren't at a motel that had a gym, Wendy was out doing cardiovascular. You know, we were in the dressing room honing our craft, you know, because you're never perfect at anything. You could always make it better. And that's the way we looked at it. I always had a good time with Wendy. Always had good matches with Wendy. I have nothing bad to say about Wendy Richter at all. She earned what she got, and she did not deserve what Moo, Spider Woman, and Vinnie Mac did to her. She did not deserve that. There was no way in hell
she deserved a lot
what
more.
happened should have happened. She was a champion. She had the body of a champion. She had the expertise of a champion. That fast count, and that's what it was. And that was not a work. That was a shoot. That match was a shoot. That was a fast count.
Well, let me
when
ask
have
you
you
this
ever
before,
seen a ref do that?
Well, let me ask you this before we go ahead and move on, because I want to talk about the injury and then current day. But as experienced as Wendy was, right?
Right.
And I heard this recently, but for someone who's been around the block as she was at the time,
right?
How could you have not, to play devil's advocate, realized that was either Moolah under the mask or something fishy was up when that whole thing happened? Because obviously you worked with somebody enough to know, hey, this is how somebody.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can look at it and I knew it was Moolah, and I'm pretty sure Wendy knew it was Moolah. Wendy knew that Moolah was at the arena that night and could not figure out why she was there. But I'm sure once she saw Spider Woman, who was originally Lord, I know her shoot name, I can't remember her wrestling name.
But yeah, when you go to lock up with somebody, you have a feel if you dealt with them enough to
You didn't even have to lock up with her to know that was Moolah.
But you know where I'm going with that.
Right. But you're on TV, you're in a match, you're on TV, what are you going to do?
You're going to try to do the professional thing.
What Wendy did was what I would have done, which is what Sue Green did. I'd have shot with him. I would have taken her out right there. But what happened was, and if you watch the match, number one, Wendy's shoulders were not down.
And it goes through the whole, yeah.
Right. Number two, that was the fastest 3 count I have ever seen in the history of wrestling, boxing, baseball, football, soccer, Greco-Roman wrestling. It was, she got screwed. And she didn't deserve it. She asked for more money. She deserved it.
She was on par with Hogan at the time as being the female lead of what was going on at the time. So, yeah, she had her right to ask for more money.
You may have touched on where the problem was right there.
Read between the lines. But she was, from the female side of things, she was, when you look at the error and all that, she was on par. When you talk female wrestling, Wendy should have been.
She was a draw. People came to see her.
And being how you were paid at the time, it was off the house and stuff. And how many people, when you talk about people, and this is someone who's been a civilian, I would say. But when you look at Wendy Richter, like you just said it there, how many people came to see, when it came to female wrestling, came to see Wendy Richter at the time?
Right.
She was the top draw.
And to have Cyndi Lauper as her manager.
Ding, ding, ding.
And we're talking 1980, 83, 84.
85, that time period.
85. We're talking Cyndi Lauper, for Christ's sakes.
She was, true colors and girls want to have fun. And
yeah. Oh Lord, I've got the album somewhere. Just
that when you said Cyndi Lauper at that time, she was the
she was the shit. All of that. And Cindy or Wendy, not Cindy, Wendy had the body of a champion.
She was that draw at the
Yes,
time.
she was that draw. And there may have been a little jealousy concern. You know, Moolah couldn't stand to see somebody hold that belt and
Of
hold
the
it
next
as
generation. But when we talk Wendy, she was of that. She was
the next generation.
she was the rightful queen of that spot at the time.
Yeah, but Moolah couldn't let that go with her ego, and neither could anybody else. And I won't mention his name, Hogan.
And I won't say nothing about the Sports Illustrated. That's there above me, but go ahead.
Right. But Cindy broke yes, us girls pushed up that glass ceiling.
But she was the
Wendy broke it.
Yeah.
And there were egos that couldn't handle it.
Hold on. Wrestling and egos? Stop it.
Oh, really? No, that never happened.
That's never stop it in your business.
Speaking of which,
go ahead.
And totally off New York because I'm getting aggravated because what Vinnie Mac did to my business, I can't stand him for. He turned women's wrestling, which what Wendy worked for, what I worked for, where Judy Martin, Peggy Lee Fowler, Velvet McIntyre, and so many more worked for. We were not these TNA model women. We were wrestlers. If you and something Sandy always told me, I don't care how big they are. If you can't take them down, you have no business in my ring. And I just what they did to Wendy really pisses me off. There had to be one hell of a payday for her to accept being inducted into Vinny's Hall of Fame.
And you know what? With all that being said, if that were the case, as far as the payday and stuff,
I don't blame her.
I don't know. I never dealt with Wendy. Would love to one day. But
Wendy was a very good person. I spent many, many days traveling with Wendy in the car, on the plane. But what they did to her was wrong. I don't care.
Yeah. But when it comes, absolutely, from things you hear and all that. But if it were a good payday for the Hall of Fame and stuff, I can't blame her.
Oh, no, I can't blame her either to get that $40 fake ring.
Yeah. So, obviously, with you, and we were joking when we started.
Right.
And I appreciate the time tonight. But I was born August 6th, 1984.
Yes, sir.
According to the internet, and it could be off a few days, but you confirmed it. Early September of 84, there was a show in my territory literally, it was less than 5 miles from my house in Jersey.
I believe...
The Philadelphia Spectrum.
No.
No, was it the Spectrum?
No, we were not at the Spectrum. This was a dark show. That is the mistake everybody makes.
Okay, go ahead.
And they keep looking at that match, trying to figure out where I broke.
That was the
neck.
one in January that people looked at, right?
No, there was one September 1st.
Okay.
And everybody keeps looking at that match. And there was a spot. Velvet went over. Somehow Velvet went over me to make a finish. And if I can pull the match up. And everybody thinks that's when my neck got broke. And it's not. My neck got broke in a dark match. And it wasn't the Spectrum. There was a building not too far from the Spectrum that we used to wrestle in, a cinder block building. And that
could have been the convention center?
It could have been. Very well could have been. That was 40 years ago.
Okay.
And I can't find the match anywhere. And I cannot find any, which for a while I couldn't find Velvet and I on Piper's Pit.
I actually saw it. I'll send it over to you.
Well, I actually have loaded it up to YouTube from my computer because somebody sent it to me. But anyway, what happened was, and I can't remember if the girl picked me up to hang me in the turnbuckle or picked me up.
Was it a pile driver? Pile driver?
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, like I said, I can't remember. But when you pick somebody up for a pile driver, and you pick somebody up, put them in the corner, hang them in the corner. It's the same move.
Yeah.
But there was a wrinkle or a tear in the match, and the girl tripped and she sat on my head. I did not know my neck broke at that time.
And that's what I was going to say.
I
you get to the
locker
match. Room, all that.
Yeah, get to the locker room, cool off a few minutes, go to unlace my boot, and when I bent over, I felt a shot of pain.
That's when you noticed something was up.
Well, I knew something was up, but I did, like all of us did at the time. Okay, what muscle have I pulled?
But the point I was going to say was you didn't realize how severe that was in that particular night until you went to go do your boots.
I actually knew how bad it was because I sat back up when I felt the pull on my neck. I sat back up and I said, all right, I need to cool down just a few more minutes because when you wrestle, when you finish the match, the adrenaline is flowing, and anybody knows when you've got an adrenaline rush, you could almost break a bone and not feel it. Almost.
There was a story with Ernie Ladd with that, but
right,
and I couldn't remember who the opponent was, but go ahead. Had the arm sticking out.
I go down the second time, and I can remember going to lean over. From that point, I went black. From what I understand, I screamed so loud that both dressing rooms came to find out what the hell was going on. The next thing I remember is I'm laying on, and I didn't know it was a gurney at the time, but I'm laying down, and I see this guy with a blue outfit. I know now it was an EMT, and there's red lights in front of me. The next thing I remember is I'm at the hospital. I got this doctor hovering over the top of my head. You need an operation. You need it now. And I remember saying, if you operate on me, I won't let you quacks operate on me because everybody you've operated on, you've only made worse. The next thing after that, I have no memory whatsoever of leaving Philadelphia and getting back to South Carolina in Columbia.
Yeah, you were living with Moole at the time.
Well, I wasn't living with her. I was
living on her compound.
Right. And I remember walking, and this is what's weird is I don't remember being in the house. I don't remember getting dressed. When my memory comes in, we're walking out to the ring in her barn, and she's wanting me to see if I can take a bump, and I go to take a bump and
flare everything up.
Right. Then the next thing that happens is Moolah calls me to the house, and she says, I need you to talk to this guy. And
is this the Amsterdam story?
Yeah. Yeah. And I won't remember, I will not speak his name, but I was talking to him. He's supposed to be a super fan. I said, all right. And I let him know right away, separate motel rooms, and I don't know what made me do that, but, it was my radar, my spidey senses came on, and I told him separate.
I've been around the block a couple times.
Just once or twice.
Yeah.
And when I get off the phone, Moo looks at me and she says, hon, the nicer you are to Mr. So-and-so, the bigger your payday will be. And you need a big payday right now, hon. And I just looked at her. So I get flown. He picks me up from the airport. And the first thing he does is drive through the Amsterdam red light district. And if you've never been there, you'll never understand. They literally have big windows like you would see at Macy's. And women are sitting in the windows in their lingerie, and you push a button from what I understand, and then you pay your bills. And we're driving through it, and I'm going, damn. You know, I'm not a prude, but I'm going, damn. You know, because prostitution is legal. And he points out this empty window. He says, I want to build you a gym right there to train girls for wrestling. And I'm going, uh-huh.
You see where this is going.
Oh, I already knew. I already knew, for the simple fact that he took me through the red light district right then. You know, maybe if I was a babe in the woods, I wouldn't have known, but the way I came up,
light bulb, you know, light bulb goes off.
Right. And so we get to the hotel, which is one of the I can't if it was on the Rhine or what, but it was one of these castles that they had hotels on. And we get separate rooms. We have dinner
what you said to him.
Yeah, we have dinner that night. I go to my room, and being me, I wake up the next morning out of the blue, and I wake up to, I have his hand right here in my fist, and his hand is going for my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that goes back to the earlier conversation of full circle.
So I start propping the wrist. I'm turning up. I'm pushing the wrist backwards. I'm trying to get him away from me. And I looked at him. I said, Ernie, I'll break your fucking wrist. Now, I am not naive. And if this guy had been good looking, if it had been something I was attracted to, I may or may not have. But this guy,
that's a whole different story.
This guy was not beat by the ugly stick. This guy was beat by the whole fucking forest. He had, and I didn't see it until he finally backed away. But he had on boxer shorts, and pretend this is the boxer shorts. This was his leg in the boxer shorts.
We won't say it's a can of Raid, but go ahead.
Right. This is his leg in the boxer shorts. This man not only has no muscle tone, I don't think he had bones. And he was not white. He was, like I said before, translucent. And his attitude sucked.
Where was Buddy Rose with the pills at the time, damn it?
Right? And I get him off of me, and I've got to be there a week. Well, I'm looking at it, and I'm going, all right, I'm going to tour London. I'm going to the Church of the Holy Hearts. You know, I'm going to do all this. I just have to be on survival mode. So from that time forward in the separate room, not only did I put the door lock on, but I put the deadbolt on, and I put a chair up underneath the knob. And one day this guy asked me, he said, well, what would you do if I took your passport away from you? And I looked him right dead in the eye because, like I said, I'm on survival mode now. And I'm driving. The idiot actually, after pissing me off, let me drive his Jag on the Autobahn. But he said, well, what would you do if I took your passport? And I said, well, after I beat the living shit out of you, I said, I'll go find the American consul and I'll press every freaking charge against you I can. Oh, come on, princess. Everybody's got their price. I've got money. I'm a duke. I've got women falling at my feet. And I looked at him. I said, Ernie, your feet and your money don't mean nothing to me. And he said, well, everybody's got their price. What is yours? And I looked him right dead in the eye and I said, love. He had all the money in the world, but he couldn't give me love. So I get back, and I didn't hear about it till about 20 years later. But Moo was raising pure hell. I can't believe she didn't sleep with him. I can't believe she didn't do this. When
Is
I
that
got
tied in
back,
with the when you got home? She said you went to jail story.
I went. Well, I didn't believe it or not. I did not know that, and I don't hold grudges against a lot of people, and I don't hold a grudge against Lillian Ellison being a booker and being a thief.
That's a whole different. Yeah.
But her letting my surrogate father, Sandy Barr, and a lot of my friends who are dead go to their graves thinking I was in prison for dealing coke. I can't forgive her for that. I can forgive her for everything else. But she let people who brought me up, my brothers who trained me, my brothers who had my back, she let them go to their graves believing I was in prison for dealing coke.
So let's end this kind of on a positive. So
Yes, sir.
obviously you have the injury, you come back from Amsterdam, and people can look up this story with you being kicked out of Mula's compound with her keeping some of your gear and all that stuff.
She kept
and
90% of my gear.
Yeah.
She kept the
And
brown outfit. She kept the white outfit. She kept the yellow outfit. She kept my blue and white boots, my yellow and white boots.
Yeah.
All for $600 rent I owed her.
Yeah. So that whole story happens, and you kind of separate yourself from the business. And she obviously,
my heart was broken.
Yeah. So
my heart was broken.
So these stories are told from her and everything else.
Yep.
But we fast forward, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. We're talking maybe 2 decades. So this fancy little thing on the internet comes out, and Facebook and such.
Right.
Now, mind you, I should also insert here, because I have heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the one true friend that you kept throughout the business was Velvet McIntyre. So anyway, this whole thing called Facebook comes out, and you come on, and obviously you had the relationship with Velvet, but you start reconnecting with old friends from the business.
Yep.
And
actually, the biggest thing that happened was not so much Facebook.
What made you whole here when you go ahead?
But what happened was, and I'm not going to go into names or something, but I tagged up with this guy who was supposed to be doing a documentary on women wrestling. Mark me, because he did fool me. I did a lot of work. But what happened, the biggest thing that happened was I went to the Gulf Coast Wrestling Reunion. And I believe
is this the one that Percy Prinkle was involved with?
The last one Percy was involved in.
Okay.
And I actually had footage of him, and he died 24 hours later. That footage was stolen, but that's another day. Yeah. But I didn't even I didn't even get in the door good. And Ronnie Garvin comes up to me. Now I don't have my label on. We're talking 40 years down the road. I don't even have my Princess Victoria name tag on. And Ronnie Garvin comes up to me. He said, "Where the hell have you been?" And I knew who he was, but I didn't think he'd know who I was 40 years later. I said, "Well, I just dropped out of sight for a while." And Ronnie looks at me and says, "Try it again, and we'll send the dogs out after you." And I walked back into this business like I'd been here for 40 years.
What was that like for you, that these rumors were going out about you, but when you reappear, let's say,
I was
you had that love coming back.
Yeah, I had that love coming back. I was able to straighten things out with everybody that was still alive, let them know, no, that's not what happened. I didn't even know what coke looked like.
Yeah.
That's for another day when I did find out what it looked like, but I didn't find out what it looked like until 1990 something.
Your first husband, but that's like you said.
Yeah, you heard that story too.
but that's another story for another day.
You've definitely done your homework, sir. I am very impressed.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, real scary. I'm looking for microphones and But anyway, when I went, that was the first time I went to Gulf Coast reunion. I got to see Vivian before she died. I hooked back up with all the girls, Ronnie, Les Thatcher, you name it.
Greatest guy on earth, Les.
I mean, anybody who went to the Gulf Coast Wrestling reunion, I was welcomed with open arms. And I can say I've cried more than once, tears of joy, by the way that I was brought back, and have basically been told, don't try it again. I mean, Ronnie's not the only one who said that.
We'll set the dogs out on you.
Well, I can't wrestle anymore. I haven't been able to wrestle since I broke my neck. I still show up at a training show or two, and I have my say. You know, there was one place.
Say though.
Well, I mean, I'll be standing out. The owner, the promoter will, you know, these are my guys. This is what they're doing here. Watch them train. See what you've got to say. And I have my say. You know, I do critique. I don't do judgment. I don't criticize. I critique. And there's watching these guys these days and watching their training, people are missing the fundamental building blocks of becoming a wrestler.
And here's what that, as you say that, your career was only 4 years. You got hurt in the ring, and there's a certain risk to say what you want about the business, but there's a certain risk to that. We all understand that. And
how many ballerinas, gymnasts, and all of that been injured?
And that 4 years and everything that you did and the sacrifice of your body and stuff, I'm not kissing ass. That's not my deal. But you earn the right to have your opinion based on the stuff you watch when they ask you to watch. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Don't apologize. I appreciate that. That's an honor.
I mean, you earned your right to have your opinion.
Well, an opinion is like assholes. Everybody's got one.
But yours, you know, I would think anybody who's laced their boots up, though, their opinion means a little more. And that's what I'm getting at.
Right. And what's sad is I see what happened to Terry Allen happening to a lot of people in this business now. They're paying this amount of money to be trained, and they're not being trained. I mean, and it's really sad. The trainers barely know how to wrestle themselves. They barely know how to do a lockup. How many people know how to do a hammerlock reversal these days? How many people know what a small package is, what a full Nelson is, what an armbar is, what a flying mare is? You don't see any of that anymore. And I know by talking to the fans on my Facebook page and on my fan page that the majority of the people that I talk to that are fans these days, they're sick of what they're seeing. They're tired of the bumpity bump, bump, bump. They're tired of the 15 minutes talking and the 5 minutes of wrestling. They're over the soap opera crap. They want old school wrestling back. And some of the independents that I've seen coming up, that's what they're bringing back. And that's why they're filling houses. And it's a good feeling for me to see. I hope by the day I die that I see old school wrestling back on television in the majority instead of the minority.
And I know you and me could spend another hour talking footwork and locker work, and I know the basics as far as you and me. If I was in Oklahoma or you were on the East Coast here, if we were to lock up in the footwork and just the basic things that make it work, like you're preaching at a choir. I have no experience in ring,
right?
But I know, you know what I mean. I've been around enough folks that have said this is how it goes. That, I mean, it's like you said, it's nice to see the old school come back. So
yep. And BCW here in Oklahoma and in Guthrie and in Texas and in Oklahoma that's being run, there is a lot of old school wrestling in there. And I'm 8 miles from Guthrie. Tommy Wagnum, Tommy Pantera is promoting it here in Guthrie. I'll be going there Saturday night on October 7th. He's got a match there at the fairgrounds. It's good to see the old school matches come back. It really is.
So, and two things here as we wrap. Thank you for the time. You are officially, and I think it's been a good conversation.
Excellent.
You've been the longest interview I've had officially. We've gone at 2 hours here, but it's flown by.
Right.
But so thank you for that. The other thing I want to mention and think we should mention as well, the book again. If obviously I'll put the Amazon link and all, but if they want to get a personalized autograph copy, how do they do so?
They do so. They come to my Facebook page, Vicki Otis, VICKI OTIS, and I'll be the first one you see. And in my profile, you'll see the oil painting, a copy of the oil painting the guy did of me. Contact me there. I take Venmo. I take money orders. It's $35 for an autograph copy, including shipping. I have other things. I make dream catchers. I make Indian chokers made out of buffalo bone. You can see all of that on my page. I have 8x10s that I sell. I've got t-shirts. And I will interact with my fans. I will not take any bullshit. You know, if you start being nasty, I'm gonna block you. It's that simple.
You mean to tell me I can't fly you to Jersey and
no,
never mind.
Separate motel rooms.
I'm teasing.
Dude.
I'm teasing.
Separate motel room.
Yes, ma'am. No, but all kidding aside.
Yeah, well, I've had a couple of fans try to pull some crap, and I've shut them down and blocked them. But overall, my fans are very good people. I was glad to see so many of them at the gathering. If you guys want me at a Comic-Con or a WrestleCon, you got to go talk to the promoter. You got to get the promoter to bring me in.
Yeah.
You know, that's your job. I'll be there, believe me. And it's not going to be a 10-second autograph, hand it to you and let you go. I've got time to talk. You know, I'm 62 years old now. You know how old folks tell their stories. You know, and I do, once again, appreciate every single fan that is a wrestling fan, not just my fan, because without wrestling fans, there is no wrestling. And I'd like to say thank you to every one of you.
And I think during our time here tonight, we may have told a story or two, but what do I know?
One or two.
Princess Victoria, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for having me. Have a great evening. And stay safe, everybody.
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies. Enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions or during our particular watch-alongs. Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media and order yours today.
This is the legendary Hustler Rip Rogers saying hello to everybody, and I want to encourage you to watch, learn, listen, anything you can when you hear Crazy Train Radio. Just open up those fucking ears and shut your goddamn mouth.